talk about, if we want to talk about learning curve theory. Learning curve theory, and perhaps if we can escalate it to target costing. Learning curve theory and target costing. That's what I schemed for us to discuss today. If, for background noises, allow me to mute you, Phyllis, because I'm getting some echoes from this end. Learning curve theory. So basically, remember I gave you the notes already. So you may ask, what is the purpose of this lecture? The purpose of this lecture is to explain the notes that I've already given you. So, learning curve theory, the snippet of it is like this. When employees are performing repetitive tasks, like these tasks which are labor intensive and are done repetitively, there's a tendency for employees to gain more skills and to be more efficient and spend less labor time as they perform a consecutive or subsequent tasks. So that's learning curve theory. So in layman's terms, learning curve theory, what does it mean? It simply means employees spend less labor time as they learn, or employees tend to spend less labor time on subsequent output due to learning or due to experience. So we call it experience effect. That's learning curve theory. So let me take you through the discussion items. Allow me to share my screen so that everything is legible enough and clearly demonstrated to you guys. Learning curve theory. Okay, so the discussion item, allow me to zoom my Excel perhaps for you to see clearly. Learning curve theory. Learning curve theory. So what does learning curve theory really entails, or what does it really mean? Learning curve theory simply means as employees, every time I say it, make sure you have got somewhere where you're jotting down these notes. Otherwise, you can't be just listening and looking on the screen. You have to jot down some notes. You know, that participation has got an examinative or learning effect because you are participating. So the emotional input that you put across as you participate is so vital because it allows you to learn. So learning curve theory says as employees perform repetitive tasks, repetitive tasks, they tend to spend less labor time. They tend to spend less labor time due to experience or learning effect. Learning effect. And this is what we can relate. If I'm doing a same task over and over and over again, I tend to be more experienced and spend less labor time. You know that. But what are the conditions for learning effect to occur? Conditions for learning effect. It's not like it's a given that because you're doing something, you will learn. No. There are conditions which must prevail or which must exist for learning effect to occur. Conditions for learning effect to occur. Now, these are the conditions. Very, common conditions for learning effect to occur. Number one, please like these, and just like this with yourself. I'm going to give you illustrative questions shortly, and I expect you to participate. But for now, let me take the lead and explain this thing to you before I open the floor for you to participate. Conditions for learning effect. Number one, it's like production must be labor intensive. Production must be labor intensive and repetitive. That's condition number one. For you to benefit from learning curve theory or from learning effect, production must be repetitive and labor intensive. You can't benefit from learning if production largely depends on technology or machinery and stuff, because machines or technology do not learn. For you to benefit from learning, production must be repetitive and labor intensive. Are you getting that? Another is 2. There must be low labor turnover. There must be low labor turnover. You agree with me that if there's a high labor turnover, for example, it means you are being forced to hire new employees over and over again. That's what high labor turnover means. So if you are hiring new employees, it means you have to train them, so you don't benefit from learning. You don't really benefit from this learning curve theory, because as employees are now more skilled and stuff, they then leave the company and you have to hire new employees and repeat the procedure again. You get that? So that's another issue there. There should be low labor turnover. Another is products must be standardized. Products need to be standardized. In other words, they have to be the same. They have to be the same. That's the standardization aspect. You don't benefit from learning if you are busy continually changing product specifications. It doesn't augur well. For you to benefit from learning, in other words, Kathy, for me to save labor time as I am doing repetitive tasks, whatever I'm doing should be standardized. Standardized means there's no tendency for changing product specifications and stuff. Another point, which is point number 4, is there must be, let's say, there must be no frequent changes to product specifications. In other words, the products we are producing, we need not to change them more frequently. If we are doing that, how then do we benefit from learning? Because learning curve theory says, as employees perform repetitive tasks, in other words, products which are repetitive. Now, if you are actually changing product specifications and a whole lot of other things, under the circumstances, you can't then benefit from learning. Are we together? This is not a difficult thing. Get it from your say. I'm your say, mind you. I am simply saying, when you're doing the same thing over and over again, there's a tendency for you to spend less labor time due to experience. And that learning experience is what we are referring to as learning curve theory. Are we together? So how So you may say learning curve theory methodology, or learning curve theory application. Learning curve theory application. So let us have how does learning curve theory really operates in practice? So if I may shorten learning curve theory by saying LCT. LCT states that if cumulative production is let me put the word doubled in bracket. If cumulative production is doubled, then average labor time taken to produce X units and decreases and is calculated as follows. So in your exam, we give you the learning curve theory. So it's really not an issue. The average labor time taken to produce X units. So we are saying the average labor time taken, let's say Y hours. The average labor time taken, if we can call this Dakatemani. Who is this? Oh, sorry. Daka, how are you, Daka? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect. You are supposed to be in PM lecture, right?
Correct. Temwani.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So thanks. You have managed to join. So today we are discussing a learning curve theory. Now that you have joined some few minutes into the lecture, let me give you the long and short of it. Learning curve theory simply means if we are producing something which is labor intensive, in other words, which require labor relative to machinery or technology, there's a tendency for you, as you do that repetitively, there's a tendency for you to spend less labor time. That's the learning curve approach. If you do the same thing repetitively, the average time you spend to produce a given number of units decreases. And how do you calculate that? This is where you have joined. Of course, I've remarked on it with some other stuff. Make sure you play the video from the beginning. So what I was saying is the average labor time taken to produce X units, which we say Y hours, sorry for that. The average labor time taken to produce X units, which we refer to Y hours, is calculated as follows. So this is learning curve theory. LCT, meaning learning curve theory, states that if cumulative production is doubled, then the average labor time taken to produce which is Y hours, that's the average labor time taken to produce X units, decreases and is calculated as follows. So in your exam, we give you the formula for how to calculate cumulative the average labor time taken. I have opened the question paper here for the purpose. So there you go. Average labor time taken to produce X units is calculated as follows. So this is the learning curve theory. So you can see here how it goes. It says Y equals AX to the power B. So if I can copy this, I can copy this if it permits me to do that. Allow me to copy that. Copy that. So this is learning curve theory. It says that's how it operates. It says y equals ax to the power b. Yx, learning curve says y equals ax to the power b. So this is like y equals ax. Let me put x in bold, to the power b. Y equals ax to the power b, where y is the cumulative average time. No wonder why we are saying average labor time taken. And then a is the time taken to produce the first unit. That's a. And x is the number of units, of course. And b is the learning index. And how do you calculate learning index? It is the logarithm of learning rate over logarithm of 2. Logarithm of learning rate over the logarithm of 2. Let me shade this in yellow and allow me then to expand on this further. You know what? When you hear people saying, Kathy, let me take your attention to something. When you hear people saying PM is difficult, one of the things which makes PM difficult is a failure to understand the topic I'm discussing today. Because the topic I'm discussing today on the overall, it says if you are performing repetitive tasks, labor time decreases with units that you are producing. So this topic is examined in a variety of tentacles. You know, it has got its tentacles spread all over. Even when we are doing budgeting, expect to see a topic, because if we are saying labor time decreases with learning, in other words, we can use learning effect to budget for labor time. So expect to see this topic in budgeting. Even if when you are talking of variance analysis, when you are setting standard hours of labor, there is an element that the examiner may say labor is exposed to learning, and as such you need to come up with the standard hours of labor which incorporates the learning effect. So students have a tendency of now saying, look, I have done variance analysis and I'm finding it difficult. I have done budgeting and I'm finding it difficult. And if you open the questions therein, you will notice there is a lot of questions on learning. Quite a lot of questions on learning. And now the question is, was variance analysis difficult, or you didn't master learning curve theory? You need to master learning curve theory to understand budgeting. You need to master learning curve theory to understand variance analysis. So if you just go there and ignore learning curve theory, you run the risk of saying those topics are difficult, yet you did not do your homework or the baseline material right. So there you go. So what am I saying? So again, average labor time. We are saying average labor time decreases. And here's how you calculate it. It says y, which is average labor time, equals ax to the power b. And you know that xa is the time taken to produce the first unit, and x is the cumulative number of units produced, and b is the learning index, which is logarithm of the learning rate divided by logarithm of 2. Actually, the learning rate is given as a decimal. No wonder why they say LR. Okay, so let us have this tabulative presentation. We just want to prove if the learning rate, if this formula holds true. So let us have an example here. We just want to check if this formula indeed holds true. So here is how it goes. So let's say learning rate equals 90%. Learning rate equals 90%, and then time taken to produce the first unit, taken to produce the first unit equals 40 hours. Suppose these are whatever you're producing. The first unit needs 40 hours. That's your A there. So let us have a tabular presentation which says cumulative production. You know, it says whenever cumulative production is doubled. So cumulative production is your X. And then this is labor time, labor time, and then okay. So instead of saying labor time, let us actually put it like average labor time. Average labor time. And then let us proceed and say a proof. Remember, average labor time, that's your Y. And then proof. The proof is, we want to prove the formula. The formula says Y equals AX to the power B. AX to the power B. Let us just prove this. Okay, I don't have my calculator in here, but I would ask you then to calculate it and prove it to me. Now, Kathy, are you not seeing what we are saying? What we are doing? We just want to see if the learning curve theory holds true. So learning curve theory says if cumulative production is doubled, so it's like 1 times 2 equals 2 times 2 equals 4 times 2 equals 8, for example. This is what we refer to as doubling of cumulative production. And the first unit took 40 hours. So time taken for the first unit is 40 hours. And if the first unit takes 40 hours, this is again, if you can prove it, remember X is 1. So it's A 1 to the power B. So any number you raise to the power, if you raise 1 to any power, you still get 1. So that's 40. So that one is fine. Now, notice something. If we say employees are learning at 90%, please get me right. If we say employees are learning at 90%, it means if they spend 40 hours to produce the first unit, the second unit needs 90% of the first unit. So the second unit would require 90% multiplied by 40 hours. So this is what you would need for the second unit. 90% multiplied by 40 hours, which is 36. Now, remember, this is the average time. It's the average, meaning total time divided by 2. And then the average for 4 units would be 90% multiplied by 36 hours equals, what is 90% multiplied by, let me calculate it somewhere here, 0.9 times 36. So 90% multiplied by 36, I'm getting 32,4. And then the average for 8 units becomes 90% multiplied by 32,4. 32,4 hours equals, so you are saying equals here, this multiplied by 0.9, 29,16. So there you go. So this is what is normal. This is how you calculate. When we say there is learning, please notice, Dorcas, if I'm saying you are learning at 90%, I am saying the average time for you to produce the next doubled output, it will be 90% of what you took previously. That's what we call learning. You are learning if you are taking less time. So the average for 1 was 40. For 2 units was 90% of 40, because you are learning at 90%, meaning you are spending 90% of the previous labor time. So can we now use these answers to prove whether this formula works, which is saying cumulative labor time equals y equals ax to the power b. So here you are saying A is the time taken to produce the first unit. So it's 40. X is the number of units. So it's 40 bracket 2 to the power. If you want to find to the power, you say shift 6. Shift 6 gives you to the power. B, how do you calculate B? B is the logarithm of learning rate over logarithm of 2. You have it here. So it's to the power, open bracket, log 0.9 divided by log 2. Always learning rate, put it as a decimal. And if you perform this calculation, what do you get? If you perform this calculation, what do you get? So I can punch it here and say equals 40 times 2 of open bracket log, you type log like this, log 0.9, log 0.9. I don't have calculator with me, so this requires log 0.9 divided by log 2, then you close bracket like this, log 0.9 over log 2, press enter. It's saying this to the power of, okay, so there's need for me to, oh sorry, this should be log, it should be log. Okay, notice I have just done that. 40 times 2 to the power of log 0.9 over log 2. What I'm getting here is 36. So I am proving the formula is coming out right. So it's 36. So if you want to go to the second, you can still do the same. To say 40 times, this time it's not 2 because our x is now 4. Like this. So here you can prove whether this formula works by putting, instead of putting 2 and then put 4, 32,4. Notice here we are getting 32,4. So clearly this formula works. And here we, instead of 4, we now have 8. And here instead of 4, we now have 8 for us to verify. And now I'm getting, escape and undo. Let me undo it. And now here I'm putting 8 here. And what I get is 29,16. 29,16. So make sure you can punch these figures right in your calculator. You can punch these figures right in your calculator. Now, because normally examiners know that you may have issues in punching log 0.9 over log 2, log 0.9 over log 2. Examiners, they know that you may have issues in punching this into your calculator. So what examiners normally do is they give you what is called learning index. They give you what is called learning index, meaning they punch it for you. So in this case, it will be equals log 0,9 divided by log 2. So examiners normally give it to you like this. In other words, examiners, they normally don't allow you to punch it. Rather, they give you the answer having punched it themselves. And when they do that, that is now called learning index.
Hello, sir. Someone is trying to get into the lecture.
Oh, okay, cool. Thanks. Allow me to connect the person. Okay. So, can you punch for me? Can you punch for me the learning index here? Try punching for me in your calculator whilst I'm connecting our colleagues into the class. Can you try to punch the learning index and tell me what comes out here? Okay. Let me check, guys, who is trying to join the lecture. All right. Sorry, Daka, are you the one who was trying to join the lecture?
No, sir. I was actually restarting because I wasn't seeing the video.
Okay,
Sir,
cool.
it's Anna
So let
Nyasha.
me
She
check
sent a
who is
message. She sent a message to our WhatsApp group.
all right, cool.
She's asking for the link.
All right, it's okay. Okay, Priska. Oh, Priska doesn't have. She doesn't have. She needs to install WhatsApp on her laptop for her to join the lectures. You know, it's so important to install WhatsApp on the screen for one to join the lectures. Okay, allow me to connect Priska, and I have to open quite a lot of windows here for me to connect here. Just a sec. Okay, I just want to connect Priska to our class. Okay. Okay. Okay, so let me try to do this. So Priska, what is happening is Priska has not installed a WhatsApp on her laptop. She has to install WhatsApp on your laptop. Okay. So continuing. So what is it that I was saying? I was saying you would notice I asked you to punch. Can you please tell me what you got? I said, can you punch log 0.9 over log 2? Can you punch that figure, guys, and tell me the answer? Punch it in your calculator. Sorry, I don't have my calculator with me, guys. Can you punch it in your calculator? Log 0.9 over log 2. What do you get?
Donna minus 0.15.
Minus 0.15. Doctor. So what happens is in an exam, instead of you may be given learning index is minus 0.15. So instead of saying 40 times 8 to the power of log 0.9 over log 2, the examiner may say the learning index is minus 0.15. So when you are punching, suppose you were punching this equation, you would simply say equals 48. Then you say to the power of minus 0.15 like this. And you get 29.2. But notice we are getting 29.2 and here we have got 29.16. It's because if Dorcas has rounded off here index. What was the actual number, Dorcas? If you suppose you put it to 2 decimal places, what does it give you?
Minus 0.152003093.
2003, for example. If we put it like this, notice Dorcas, it then gives us 29.16. So it gives us the exact figure. So the examiner, instead of you punching to say log 0.9 over log 2, the examiner can just give you this as a learning index. So all you have to do is to just punch the learning index like this. And once you punch the learning index, you then need not to say log 0.9 over log 2. That collectively is known as learning index. As you can see here, that collectively is known as B, which is your learning index, log 0.9 over log 2. So if the examiner says learning index is minus 0.15, don't bother punching log again. You get that? Okay, now continuing. What does this particular table tell us? Let me again recap this table. This table tells us that if learning effect or learning rate is 90%, it means if the first unit takes 40 hours, you are going to spend 90% of the previous. That's what it means when you say you are learning at 90%. You are going to spend 90% of the previous. So what does that mean? So we can say in the table above, the table, before I type this statement, I want this to sink in your mind, Dorcas. I said a learning rate of 90% means you are going to spend 90% of the previous time that you took. So tell me, who is learning faster? The one who is learning at 60% or the one who is learning at 90%? Can you type in the chat for me? Who do you think is learning faster? The one who is learning at 90% or the one who is learning at 60%? Can you type in the chat? Suppose you are asked a simple question. Who is learning faster? The one who is learning at 90%. Remember, I said 90% means you are going to spend 90% of the previous time. So if I take 40%, if I take 40 hours and I'm learning at 90%, it means when I produce the next unit, I'm going to take 90% of what I took on the previous unit. So my question is, who do you think is learning faster? The one who is learning at 60% or the one who is learning at 90%? Please type in the chat. May you please type in the chat. Who do you think is learning faster? I'm not seeing anyone. Oh, sorry. Let me check. Catherine. Oh, okay, perfect. The one who is learning at 60%, perfect. So that's the point I actually want to write. We say the table above indicates that a learning rate of 60%, a learning rate of 60% implies that employees are learning faster. Employees are learning faster and compared to a learning rate of, say, 90%. So if you are learning at 60%, you're actually learning faster because it means you are taking 60% of the previous time. So you are actually learning faster than someone who is learning at 90%. That's what you can deduce from a table above. Now, so allow me to address Priska, who has recently joined. Priska, can you unmute and talk to yourself? Just a sec. Well, Priska, if you can hear me, please unmute and talk to yourself. Well, it appears Priska is hooked up onto something else. Now, what I wanted to talk to Priska is like this. When you are joining a class, this is Skype class, don't join with a browser. Like just don't join to say Google Chrome and join from that browser. I advise you to install Skype application on your laptop. You know, the beauty of installing Skype application is that when we call to this class, if anyone calls to this class, everyone who is in this class will receive that notification that someone is calling. But if you are joining using a browser like Google Chrome, you are joining using something, it doesn't then what allow you to, you don't even receive a notification that someone is calling. So that's what I wanted to talk to Priska, and I'm sure it helps. Now continue. So one may ask a logical question, Dorcas, and say, are you telling me that learning curve theory applies to perpetuity? Because the table you have given us is indicating that labor time continually decreases. You can see here it was 40, 36, 32, 29. So you may then ask and say, tell us, are you saying it does continue until it is 0? Clearly, labor time, learning effect does not really continue until labor time is 0, because when you are producing with a labor time of 0, it means you are now doing it miraculous. You are now operating in miraculous proportions. You are not doing miracles, isn't it? So there is an output level where learning stops. where you say you no longer have learning has stopped. At that juncture, it means subsequent production is no longer exposed to learning. Now, if labor time was falling until it is now 10 hours and it's no longer falling, it means every output I'm now producing from this moment going forward, I'm now producing it 10 hours. I'm not producing it the starting labor time, because remember it was falling. Up to a point it's no longer falling. So subsequent output is now produced at that particular. Oh, sorry. Okay. So let me now take you through what I'm saying here. Allow me to take you through, and because we are learning online, it's not a train smash. If I can even show you a diagram, learning curve theory. Let me show you what I'm actually explaining here. Let me show you what I'm explaining. Where is the diagram that you feel like mimics what I've just told you here? Actually, this diagram is ideal because it really mirrors what I was just saying now. Learning curve theory. Allow me to open it. Just takes a few seconds. It will open. Right. So there you go. So this is the diagram in question. Notice in this particular diagram, there was learning effect until, notice, there was learning until you produce this level of output. This. Once you produce, so if I call this A, for example, once you produce A, there is no more learning. So if this is T, for example, this is T, it means any output beyond A is being produced at T hours. Can someone take a screenshot? Can you just take a snapshot of this, Kathy? Just take a snapshot of it. Okay, perfect. So what does this mean? It means there was learning until you produce A unit. Once you have produced A unit, there's no more learning. So it means output level beyond A is now being produced at T units. So I will leave this open and come back to my, because I want to explain this. So the diagram, like that diagram indicates that learning curve, learning effect applies until A units are produced. Until A units are produced. Thereafter, the time taken to produce eighth unit, if I can put a, the time taken to produce eighth unit will apply to all subsequent units. Now, you may ask and say, what do you mean? I have just showed you from the diagram here that learning applies until you produce A. B, all units after A, they will take time that you produced the eighth unit. The eighth unit. Now, pay attention to this, because I'm going to take your mind to something that I know you already know, but perhaps you might have forgotten. Now, this is what I want to take your mind to. What I want you to take your mind to. Allow me to shade this in blue, because it has nothing to do with particularly learning curve per se, but it helps you to understand what I'm going to say going forward. Now, listen to this. Listen to this. If I want to find total, for example, suppose I want to find total weight of all students in the class. I say total equals, if I want to find average, for example, let me not say total, let me say average. If I want to find average weight of students in a class, I say total divided by number. This is how I find average. Okay, it's as simple as that. Average equals total over number. So what does that mean? It means what I'm saying is average equals x, that's for total of x, over number. Total of x over x. That's average. Total of x over x. You understand with that? Now, how do we find tx? Now, total is obtained. Total is obtained by making x, by making tx the subject formula. Total is obtained by making tx the subject of formula. Now, how do we find total? You say tx, notice tx equals, you want to find tx, you say average multiplied by x. That's how you find tx. Total of x equals average multiplied by x. It is that. Please understand that, and then you can agree with me going forward. So you know that average is calculated using this formula. Remember, this is the formula for average. Average is yx to the power b. Average is yx to the power b. So what it means is here, now average labor time equals average labor time. Remember, average labor time, that's y, equals a x to the power b. That's average. So if instead of saying average, we want to say, to substitute with ax to the power b instead of saying average here, let us substitute average by saying ax to the power b. It would mean that tx equals total of x equals capital letter X bracket. You then have to, instead of saying average, you are now saying ax power b. I'm sure this makes a lot of sense. That's how you find total. Total labor time equals AX to the power B. So allow me now to proceed with my explanation here. Instead of saying average, we are now saying AX to the power B, because AX to the power B means average. So you now say thus, comma, the total labor time taken to produce, say, let's say the total labor time that you take to produce, say, 10 units. 10 units. If instead of saying X, we are now saying 10. The total labor time taken to produce 10 units, you then say T10. T10 equals average of 10 multiplied by 10, which is equals to 10. Then you are multiplying 10 by average of 10. Average of 10 is A times 10. Remember, X is 10 in this case. Remember, total for X is AX times AX to the power B. In this case, X is 10. So it's 10 times average of 10, which is this to the power B. This is how you find average time to produce a 10 units. In the same vein, can you type in the chat feature for your, just for your say, what is the average time to produce? Oh, so I said average of 10 equals. Average of 10 equals. You say 10, I mean total time of 10 equals average of 10 times 10, which is 10 bracket average of 10, which is A 10 to the power B. Remember, average is written as AX to the power B. So there you go. Now, can you type in the chat feature for me? How do we calculate average of 15? Just type in the chat feature for me. You are looking on your screen. How would you calculate average time to manufacture 15 units? Type it for me, guys. Talk to me. Average of 15 units. No, not average, sorry. I'm asking total time for 15 units. Can you type for me? Remember, total time for 10, you use this formula. Total means average times number. And instead of saying average, you are saying AX to the power B. So now my question is, how do you calculate total time for 15? Using the same notation, how would you calculate total time for 15? I'm expecting you to be typing. Because if total for 10, which is TX, is 10 multiplied by average of 10, but remember, average is calculated as AX to the power B. In other words, A10 to the power B. So how would you calculate total time for 15? I'm expecting you guys to be typing. Priska, how are you? Okay, so what I'm getting here is, yes, continue typing. I want to see your answers. So Dorcas, you're correct. A total for 15, which is T15 equals 15 times A, 15 to the power B. Kathy, you are saying T15 equals 15 times A, 15 to the power B, correct? Oh, so I'm still seeing you typing. Okay, you were retyping it again. You wanted to put the bracket. Fine. Yes, yes. I like it. I like that. That is called attention to detail. That is called attention to detail. Phyllis, you are typing. Okay, perfect. Total time for 15 equals 15 multiplied by average of 15. I like that. So there you go. Okay, coming to our notes once again. So we have settled the issue of total. Let us settle another issue. I'm shading it in yellow. Before I come to the total, let me settle with you another issue. Suppose in class we have got student 1, student 2, 3, and here is their weight. 30 let's say 50 kgs, 45 kgs, 60 kgs. This is their weight. Notice this is their weight. You get that? Now, what is the total? If you are asked what is the total weight? First two students. Total weight for the first two students, which is T2. Remember, total means T2. So total weight for the first two students equals 95. Then, what is the total weight? Total weight for first 3 students. What is the total weight for the first 3 students? If you are asked first 3 students, which is T3, please pay attention, guys. T3, you get total weight for the first 3 students, which is T3. It's 95 plus 60, which is 155. Total weight for the first 3 students. Now, can you imagine? Please, on that one, just avoid distractions and listen to yourself. Can you imagine if the weight for the third student was not given? Perhaps the weight for the third student, remember we know that it's 60, but suppose it was not given. It was just given as question mark. The weight of the third student was not given. Let's say it was just given as question mark. So you would say weight of third student. Weight of third student equals, if you want to calculate weight of the third student, you would say total weight of 3 minus total weight of 2. You would get the weight of the third student, which is 155 minus 95, and you get the weight of the third student is 60. Are you getting that, guys? Oh, sorry. I'm getting some echoes. Oh, sorry. Temwani, please mute. Okay. So here's how I would come to have weight of the third student. Are you noticing it, Dorcas? If I'm given total weight of 3 students and total weight of 2 students, I can have weight of the third student by simply saying total weight of 3 minus total weight of 2. It gives me the weight of the third student. I want you to use this analog for you to understand this. So if we then say labor labor time taken to produce, say, the 15th unit. If you want to find the labor time taken to produce the 15th unit, you simply say equals. You say time for 15th equals. So you say total time for 15 minus total time for 14. Total time for 15 minus total time for 14. That gives you time taken to produce the 15th. So notice here, we said total is, if you want to say total, you say 10. Total for 10, you say 10 times average of 10. So if you want to find total time for the 15th unit, you simply say equals. You then say, instead of saying, you then say equals T15 minus T14, which is equal to T15. You say 15 times average of 15. Average of 15 is A, 15 to the power B. That's average of 15. Minus total for 14, you say 14 times average of 14, which is A, 14 to the power B. So this is a very important equation. That is the time taken to produce the 15th unit. You say total for 15 minus total for 14. That's how, and remember, total means, if you are saying total for 10, it's 10 times average of 10. So total for 14, it's 14 times average of 14. Now, I want you to use the notation in this last equation, which is shaded in red. The last equation, which I've shaded in red. Can you use the same notation to find me a time taken to produce the 100th unit? Can you type in the chat? Let me know how you would calculate the time taken to produce the 100th unit. Type in the chat, guys. How you would calculate the time taken to produce the 100th unit. I want you to follow the same approach here, but I want you to put it in the notation which is given in red. How would you calculate labor time taken to produce the 100th unit? Right? Are you guys typing? I want you to use this notation here to calculate the labor time taken to produce the 100th unit. Let me check here. Labor time for 100th is T100 minus T99, which is 100A 100 to the power B minus 99A 99 to the power B. You guys are stars. You guys are wonderful stars. You guys are wonderful stars. Kathy, you know, you are always a star. What's wrong? I'm not seeing you typing. What is happening? You want to lag behind from the Star Wars. These are Star Wars. Okay, correct there. Okay. All right. So there you go. This is how you calculate labor time taken to produce. So you can still use the same approach to calculate labor time for the 20th unit, for the 33rd unit, for the 35th unit. Allow the examiner to give you whatever the examiner feels like giving you. You still use the same methodology to hammer your points home. So there you go. Okay. So now, I'm sure we are done with learning curve theory. Allow me then to have last concluding remarks, which is uses of learning curve theory. Uses of learning curve theory, LCT. Realized that learning curve theory is a very important concept. Now, what are its uses? Here are the uses of learning curve theory. Number one, we use learning curve theory when budgeting for labor time. When budgeting for labor time. So what it means is expect to find topics on learning curve in questions on learning curve when you are doing budgeting. Expect to find that. We use learning curve theory, number two, when quoting customer jobs. When you are quoting customer jobs, you use learning curve theory for that. Remember, if a customer comes and say, I need 16 units, and you know that labor is going to decrease, so you can actually quote the job well using the projected labor times. Another issue is you use learning curve theory when, you know, LCT can be used as a source of competitive advantage. We can use learning curve theory as a source of competitive advantage. A competitive advantage. What do we mean by this? We are saying reduced labor time passed on to consumers, can be passed on to customers in the form of lower prices. Labor time can be passed on to customers in the form of lower prices. Are you getting it? That's how you will use learning curve theory. If you know that you are going to save labor cost, you can actually pass on that cost advantage to your customers in the form of lower prices. So if you are experiencing learning, you can turn that into a source of competitive advantage. As long as learning experience is still there, it means there is more propensity or more chance for you to reduce labor cost. So you can turn that to your advantage by charging customers lower prices. So you can win market share as a result. So this concept is no wonder why we bring it within the scope of management accounting. No wonder why we teach you this within the scope of performance management. So let us do a question on this and move on. Let us do a question on this and move on. You know, it's quite a lot of stuff that we are learning today, and we are learning quite a lot. This is like December 2014 question number 1, chair company. You can as well find this question in your revision kits, so it is still fine. If I can send it in our class Skype, class here, for you to have a copy of it, to review to have a copy of the question and other questions for your practice. It's quite cool. It's quite cool that way. It's quite cool that way. So there you go. Okay. Right. So where is the question? The question is, it says, chair company has developed, that's December 2014, section B, question 1. Chair company has developed a new luxury car seat. The estimated labor time for the first unit, which is your A, remember A is the time taken to produce the first unit. The estimated labor time for the first unit is 12 hours, but a learning curve of 75% is expected to apply for the first 8 units produced. The cost of labor is $15 per hour. The cost of materials and other variable overheads is expected to total to $230 per unit. Chair company plans on pricing the car seat by adding 50% markup on the total variable cost per seat, with the cost of labor being based on incremental time taken to produce the 8th unit. Required. Calculate the price which chair company should expect to charge for each car seat. So you need to understand, they are saying they want to charge a car seat, but when it comes to labor, they are going to charge labor costs based on the time taken to produce the 8th unit. Remember, I have just asked you a question. How do we calculate time to produce the 100th unit? You say total for 100 minus total for 99. So in this particular question, chair company wants to charge labor based on the time taken to produce the 8th unit, which is total for 8 minus total for 7. So what is it that I'm saying here? So illustration. We are wrapping it up and start on something else. Remember, today we want to cover 2 stuff. Illustration. All right. This is chair company. Chair company. Chair company. I trust everyone had read the notes on throughput accounting. I did send a video, and make sure if you haven't played that video to the end, you're not doing yourself any service. Please, December 2014, December 2014, section B1. So that's what we are discussing. The question 1 says on part A, quotation for the new car seat. So that's A. Sorry. A is quotation for the new car seat. Now, what is we want to charge? We want to quote for this particular new car seat and see how it goes. So you are now going to say quotation for the new car seat. So you're now going to say, it's a matter of reading the question. It is saying cost of materials and other variable overheads. So you write it as it is. Materials and other variable overheads and other variable overheads. So materials and other variable overheads, they are saying it's 230. So this one doesn't, materials and stuff, these are not affected by learning. There's no learning effect on these ones. Remember, we said learning applies to when production is labor intensive. So it applies to labor. And then you say direct labor. Direct labor. Now, you are being told that labor is to be charged on the time taken to produce the 8th unit. So how do we calculate time for the 8th unit? You say T8 minus T7 and then you if you say T8 minus T7, you get labor time. You don't get labor cost. So for you to get labor cost, you then multiply by $15 per hour. You then multiply by $15 per hour. Then you say multiply by $15. This is how you can get labor cost. So let us now have T8. Cost. If you want to find T8, you say 8 like this. 8 times time taken for 8. We say A8. In this case, A is 12 hours because the first unit took 12 hours. So A is the time for the first unit. So A is 12. And the learning index, I have told you that instead of saying log learning rate, in this case learning rate is 75%, instead of saying log learning rate or log 0.75 over log 2, the examiner can give you the index itself. So in this case, we are simply saying 8 times 12 bracket 8 to the power of minus 0.415. That's the index. You see 0.415 here. That's the index. So I can just say this is the time taken to produce the total time for 8. I say equals 8. Now you may say when you're doing computer-based exam, how do we put it? As you can see, I am putting it on the Excel, which is your spreadsheet in the exam. So you do it the same way I'm doing it here. So it will be 8 bracket 12 times 8 to the power. To the power, it's shift 6. If you press shift 6, then you say minus 0.415. Enter. So this is labor time for 8 units. Then you say T7. T7 equals, you say 7, open bracket, 12. Remember, A is still A. A is time taken for the first unit. So A is not affected. It still remains 7. Then times 7 to the power, shift 6 minus 0.415. Close bracket there. So it's still the same formula, but instead I am now putting 7 instead of 8 to say 7 here, and also put 7 there. So this is total for 7. Why am I saying total for 8 minus total for 7? Because I want time to produce the 8th unit. Because the examiner is saying labor time is based on time taken to produce the 8th. So what is the time taken to produce the 8th? It's T8 minus T7. So this is the time taken for 8th. So I say time for 8th. Time for 8th unit. I can even close it like this. And then I then say labor cost at $15 per hour. Labor cost at $15 per hour. So I am now multiplying the units, the hours here, which is 3, multiplied by 15. You get that? So I now have the labor cost. So this, if I add 230 plus the labor cost, I get what is called prime cost, because this is direct material plus direct labor. The answer I get here is prime cost. And I come to the question, always I'm putting to 2 decimal places by just clicking comma here. If I come to the question, they are saying, chair company plans on pricing the seat by adding 50% on total variable cost. So this is total variable cost. So I say total variable cost. So there you go. This is total variable cost. So I then say add 50% markup, So it's like equals 0.5 multiplied by this. Then after doing this, I then get the selling price or the quotation. This is the quotation. That's what they are asking for. Then this is the selling price. Selling price. Selling price slash quotation. Because they are saying, how much do you charge for the new car seat? So this is what they want. So you may say, if I was to ask you this question, what is it that came in the exam? You to say in the exam there was question on pricing. Yes, it's a pricing question. But were you able to get it right? No, say why? Because there was learning curve. So you'd notice the question really needed learning curve. That's where you would earn more marks. Now continuing. Right? The first phase of production has now been completed for the new car seat. The first unit actually took 12.5 hours to make, and the total time for the first unit was 34.3. So in other words, this, given above were budgets, but these are now actual results. They are saying actual results was the first unit took 12.5. Remember, we had budgeted 12, and then hours to make. And the total time for the first 8 units were 34.3. So 8 units were 34.3 instead of 40 here. When we said T8, we got 40 here. But they are now saying total for 8 was actually 34.3. At which point the learning effect came to an end. So learning was only available for the first 8 units. Thereafter, there was no learning. So if you are to put it in a diagrammatic form, it is like this. Instead of A, that's where we are putting 8. Thereafter, there's no more learning. So the time for the 8th unit is what is then used for all other units, for all subsequent units. So there you go. Now continuing, I'm just reading. It's saying, at which point the learning effect came to an end. So when they say the learning effect came to an end, they are saying it's now constant like this. The time you took to produce the 8th unit, which is our A, then it applies. So if you took 2 hours to produce the 8th unit, all other units after the 8th unit are going to take 2 hours. Are you getting it? Units before 8 units, these are the ones which are being affected by learning. But thereafter, there's no more learning. So if there is no more learning, this formula for calculating T8 of saying 8 times average of 8, whenever there's no more learning, it doesn't apply because there's no more learning. Now, share company are planning on adjusting the price to reflect the actual time it took to complete the 8th unit. Now the question is, calculate the actual rate of learning and state whether this means that labor force actually learned more quickly or less quickly than expected. Now this one is a very easy question. For illustration, allow me to copy the table I have put at the beginning, this table here. Allow me to copy this table here. Copy. I want you to see that's what you do to answer this question. Let me paste it here. Now, I want you to notice something. In this table, our learning rate was 90%, but in the question, they are saying calculate the actual rate of learning. In other words, we don't have the learning rate. It is the rate that we want to estimate. So what do? We say let the learning rate be R. So let's say let the learning rate be R%. We don't have it. Let's say R%. and time taken to produce the first unit is now 12.5 hours. So if I come to this question here, please pay attention. First unit took 12.5 hours, which is 12. I can, if you don't mind, if I delete this part because I just wanted to prove. Let me say total. Total equals X times average. You now understand that that's how you calculate total. If you want to find total, you say total for 10 equals 10 times average of 10. We have just said that. So here, how do you calculate total? You'll be saying X, which is the number here, times average. Now, the learning rate is R. We are not given. So it means here we said 90% of the first time. So here, instead of saying 90%, we don't have the rate. So it is R percent. R percent times 12.5. So it's equals to 12.5 R. You get that? That's 12.5 R because we don't know what R is. Now, for the cumulative output, you know, this only works if output is being doubled here. To say 1, 2, 4, that's doubling cumulative production. It doesn't work when you're saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, when you are doubling cumulative production, that's where you use this table. When you are doubling cumulative production. Now, average time for the third, it will be R percent times 12.5 R. Remember, you'll be saying percentage multiplied by the previous. So this becomes 12.5 R squared. Plus power, you say shift 6. Now, the third one, it's again R percent times 12.5 R squared. What you then get is 12.5 R cubed. Now, this is the average. Remember, this is the average. For you to find total, remember, notice we said total for 7 equals 7 times average of 7. So total for 8 is here, you say 8 times average of 8. Average of 8 is 12.5 R cubed. 12.5 R cubed. And this is examiner has said total for 8 is 34.3%. I mean 34.3 hours. So this is equals to 34.3 hours. So to find R, solve the equation for total. To find the actual learning rate. The actual learning rate, which is R, you have to solve the equation for total. Solve the equation for total. And what is the equation for total? It's saying 8 times 12.5 R cubed. R cubed equals 34.3. That's the equation. So 8 by 12.5, you get 100. R cubed equals, it's actually not 43, but 34. 34 equals 0.343. So, still equals 34.3, and then you then say R cubed. R cubed equals 0.343. And if you want to find R, you then say R equals Z equals open bracket 0,343 close bracket to the power, because it's r cubed equals, so you say to the power 1/3, 1/3 close bracket. What do you get? 0,343 to the power 1/3. Can you solve it and type the answer in the chat? Solve it for your sake, guys. I don't have my calculator with me. Solve it and type the answer in the chat. R equals 0,343 to the power 1/3. What do you get? Right? I suppose someone is typed. Oh, 0,7. Perfect. So R, you are getting R as 0,7, which is equal to 70%. Remember, it was a learning rate, so you put it as a percentage. So your actual learning rate was 70%. Now the question was, calculate the actual learning rate. So we now have 70%, and then they are saying state whether this means labor force actually learned more quickly or less quickly than expected. Remember, we had budgeted learning rate. Learning rate was 75%. It's given in the question here. The budgeted learning rate was 75%, which is this one. And then actual learning rate. You know, 75% means employees are taking 75% of the previous time. That's what it means. Then actual learning rate was actual learning rate that we have calculated just now is 70%. Now tell me, does it mean employees are they learned quickly or less quickly? Can you type in the chat? In your opinion, if we had budgeted a learning rate of 75% and the actual learning rate is now 70%, in your opinion, does it mean employees learned more quickly or less quickly? I'm seeing people typing. Yes, Kathy. It means they learned more quickly, correct? Correct. They learned more quickly because 70% means they are now taking 70% of the previous time. We had budgeted them to take a 75% and they are now taking 70%. So they are actually learning more quickly than we originally thought. So that's the answer there. So you then comment and say, you have to comment after calculating like this. You say comment. Comment. You then say an actual learning rate of 70% compared to a budgeted learning rate of 75% implies that employees learned more quickly. It implies that employees learned more quickly than expected. Simple. Now, when you are saying employees learned more quickly than expected, you can actually get it from the point, from the information. Can you notice total time for 8 units using the budgeted information? It was 40 hours. Now, total time for 8 units using actual learning rate, it was 34,3 hours. So total time we had budgeted to be 40, it's now 34,3. So if we had budgeted, so if we say employees learned more quickly, if we say employees learned more quickly than budgeted, it equally means labor time is now going to be less than budgeted. if we say employees are learning more quickly than budgeted, by implication, labor time is going to be less than what we had budgeted. You get that? So you can now say, now the question says, part B, the question B says, briefly explain whether the adjusted price charged by chair company would be higher or lower than the price you have calculated in A. You are not required to recalculate things. So that question is saying, if you say employees learned quickly, do you expect that if you are to revise the price, is it going to be more than what we have calculated using budget figures? Can you type in the answer? Is the price going to be more than what you have calculated in A, or is going to be less if you are saying employees learned more quickly? And tell me why you are saying it's going to be less. So you just say less because. Can you type? It is going to be less because, and type the answer there. I'm waiting. Type the answer. Remember, guys, it's 5 minutes for us to get our first 2 hours. We want to venture into another discussion here. I have skimmed this to take us just 2 hours so that we move on. Okay, let me check. It's less because of reduced labor time. Correct. It's actually, we expect it to be less because of the reduced labor time. You are correct here, Kathy. Okay, so that was the other Dorcas, less because labor time will be decreased as labor time is decreased. Labor time will decrease as labor time is decreased. Correct, Dorcas. I like it. You know, the way it's rhyming in your sales cheeks is quite cool. Labor time will decrease. So you have all that. So if I come to the question here, where it is saying, so part B1 says, explain whether the adjusted price will be higher or lower. So the issue is the adjusted price will be lower. Reason, an improved learning rate. Remember, if learning rate falls from 75 to 70, it's an improvement. So you are saying an improved learning rate of 70% will result in less labor time, leading to lower quotation or lower price charged for the new car seat, just like that. So you get that. Now here is a quick illustration which I want you to do, but not now. When you have, I want you to do this when you are now done. Suppose you have, I want this in my WhatsApp inbox tomorrow before you sleep. So this is a quick feedback assignment. A quick feedback assignment. It's not an assignment per se. Remember, I will give you assignments, but this one is just for you to give me a very quick feedback. Make sure you submit your assignment into my WhatsApp inbox, and if when I'm marking it, I will be sending you audio recordings on wherever you might have made a mistake. So here's the time taken. Suppose it's a saloon. Time taken to produce first unit equals, now here's the time taken to produce first units equals 120 minutes. 120 minutes. And then labor cost equals $20 per hour. $20 per hour. Now, a hint, if you are given that time taken for the first unit is 120 minutes, and when you are punching in that calculator, you don't put 120 minutes, you put 2 hours. It's important to convert minutes to hours because labor cost is given per hour, not per minute. And then materials, direct material. Now, direct material is, in this particular example, let us just say $10 per hour. $10 per hour. And then what we need variable overheads. Variable overheads is $1 per hour. Variable overheads are $1 per hour, and then prime cost. I mean markup. Markup equals 40% of prime cost. Markup is 40% of prime cost. Then required. One, calculate total labor time taken to produce 50 units. To calculate price to be charged on the 20th unit. Calculate the price to be charged, or direct materials. Direct materials are not per hour, sorry. Direct materials are per unit. Sorry for that. Otherwise, it was going to be difficult for you. Calculate the price to be charged on the 20th unit. Calculate total profit and calculate total cost for 45 units. Calculate total profit and on 45 units. 45 units. And then 5 calculate time taken to produce. You know, don't tell me I'm already answering it, because I'm. Can someone please share the screenshot of the question? My network is not. I thought you guys were already answering. That was going to be perfect. Right, calculate the price. So can let me highlight it. Yes, the assignment. Can you take a snapshot of it and share it in the group? Just take a snapshot of it. Okay. Okay. So I need an answer to this question. You know, the beauty of snapshot is that you can view this without playing the video. without even using data. You can as well get all this. It's a matter of opening on your Skype and everything is there. Remember, Skype can still open on your laptop even if you don't have data, because it's an application, so it can still open. Then this, you can access it without data, so you can still do the assignment. All right. Okay, so remember what I said at introductory when I was introducing today's discussion. I said we want to discuss learning curve theory and target costing. So what we have discussed now is the learning curve theory, and you do notice it's a very important aspect, something that is very cool, something that we use as a manager in budgeting, something that we use as manager in even for performance measurement, even as you can see for pricing, even for budgeting for labor time, we can actually turn it into a source of competitive advantage. But now you realize that learning curve theory operates under these conditions. Whatever you are producing should be labor intensive, and you as a company should not have high labor turnover. Otherwise, if you are having a high labor turnover, you don't really benefit from it, because those employees who are now getting experience, if they leave, you have to start again. So you don't benefit from learning. Another issue is there should be minimum changes to product specification. If you are continually changing your product specification, in other words, the skills we have learned are again done away with because they are new specifications, so you don't benefit from learning. So that's quite cool. And you can see, the reason why I do questions with you is just to boost your confidence. But I should have done already when I said we are done. But as a student, I know it's important if I can have a question paper with you, so that I know I have my back covered. I know that, of course, as you say, I've done what a say should do. So that's perfect, guys. Continuing, let us now discuss target costing. I'm sure you might have come across this word, this phrase target costing, from your studies, in whether you were doing college degrees, whether you're doing management accounting. It was a mention on the go. It was not like a detailed discussion of what it encompasses. It was just a mention of there is something like target costing. So whatever you had come across it in whatever forum, it is still the same target costing that we want to discuss here. But before I get to the notes, to give you the, remember I gave you the notes already. This I always repeat. You have the notes, PM notes by Mr. Mpas. If you don't have them, let them know, so that I send them again in our WhatsApp class group. That's where I send those notes. If you don't have them, let me know. What I'm doing here is just explaining, so that when you are reading, it then begins to make a lot of sense. Before I pivot my attention to the nitty-gritties of target costing, allow me to give you the rapport, to establish ukama wakanaka with target costing, for you to really appreciate what target costing is all about. So here is the deal. Okay, again, I want my screen here. If you are not seeing it, perhaps it might be network, but still, don't worry, the lecture is being recorded. I will share with you. Target costing. Target costing. Now, if I may, whatever I was doing here, allow me to narrow the cells. Oh, let me. Are you seeing, as you say, I like typing. Imagine, Kathy, I had typed it in small font. I then had to retype it again in bold. That's how I like typing. That's how I like this issue of exam being computer-based. It's actually something that you should like, not you should develop an attitude with. Something you should like. So can you imagine? I had written target costing in small caps, and I had to cancel and retype again. And also notice the notes that I gave you, I typed them myself in excess of 200 pages, typing like this during all these COVID lockdowns. So you can see when you guys are busy complaining about COVID, I was busy preparing notes, not just for one subject, not for two, not for three, not for four, but in excess of 9 subjects. The notes in excess of 300 pages. It tells you how devotedly we can put to this. Can you just do the same and get this qualification in the bank and move on with your life? Let this not be a drag. So here's the deal, guys. Target costing. Allow me to establish a rapport on what target costing is about. So here's the deal. What I'm doing here is like you have just have a broader picture of what it entails. Let me start with what you know. There is what is called traditional costing. You know, traditional costing. Let's say you manufacture cakes. You know how I like cakes. Let's say you manufacture cakes, and yes, the deal. The cake is like cost of production. This is how the cost that you are having to produce cakes. Your cake is $60, and then you are charging a profit or markup for that cake, charging a profit or markup of let's say $40. So you are selling your cake for $100, which is your selling price. Yes, you are selling for your cake at $100. And then, so let us discuss what happens. So here's the deal. The margin. Let me put margin here. Remember, as always, margin is profit as a percentage of selling price. So the margin is 40%. So here's your margin, 40%. So if these cakes, you put them in Pick and Pay, for example, you say, please sell my cakes. My selling price is $100. So this particular approach is bound to have quite a lot of problems. If I get to Pick and Pay and I've got $98, they will say, you can't buy a cake because the amount you have is not equal to 100. If I've got 90, it's even worse. You can't buy a cake because the amount you have doesn't equal to 100. What more if I've got 99.5? You still can't buy a cake because the amount you have is not equal to 100. So this is the traditional approach that we use when we are costing, when you build up your costs and add a markup. And can you notice the strategic disadvantages which this particular approach exposes us to? This really has got quite a lot of disadvantages. So in mitigation, in other words, as a way out, we now have what is called target costing. You know, Kathy, target costing means we are working with what we have. So if you are a target costing manager, you don't say, my cake is for $100. No, you say to the customer, what is it that you have? What is it that you have? So that we work with what we have. That's target costing. We always do that. So target costing is a beyond approach to costing. In other words, it's an approach to costing which is flexible and responsive to changes in customer taste and preferences. You know, in our social interactions, we always say beyond. In Shona, we say kwakuseri. You know, kwakuseri. You know, when you hear people saying what they are doing is kwakuseri, they are simply saying, if judging by what is happening in the operating environment, if you continue with how you are treating customers and how you are handling them, you cannot be beaten by changes in the operating environment. And we call that beyond. Now, the opposite of beyond is traditional. It's either you are beyond or you are traditional. And notice the inconveniences, the loss of businesses that we are having from pursuing traditional approaches to costing, where we charge markup on cost. customers are leaving the firm because they are just short of 50 cents. They're just short of $1. They're just short of $2 and so forth. So how do you address that? No wonder why our subject is always called performance management or management accounting. Remember, it is still within the bracket of management accounting. You want to better understand how best can you manage this particular situation. You can do that by introducing target costing. How does it go? Here is how it goes now. With target costing, what you do is you ask the customer how much the customer is willing to pay. You don't just say, my cake is 100. Notice, we are not getting customers with your 100 thing. So you better change it. How do you change it? You say competitive selling price. In other words, how much the customer is willing to pay. You know, if you are charging a price which customers can pay, we call it competitive selling price. The customer, and now here is Kathy at the end. Kathy would say, look, say, I have $90 for the cake. The 100, I can't afford it. I have $90. So I would say, look, well, Dorcas, if you have got $100, it's still fine. Let me work with what you have. So I will tell you that I need a profit margin. So I say less desired profit margin. I say I need a profit margin of 40%. So in the exam, we give you the profit margin equals minus 0.4 multiplied by this. So I need a profit margin of 40%. So what I then do is I then come up with what is called target cost. So I now need to work with your $90 to make sure that I produce the same cake without compromising on quality. So the cake is currently costing me $60. I must produce it at 54. And this is called target cost. At the target cost. You can see now, I now need to produce the same cake at $64. So what am I doing? What I'm being forced to do now is to say estimated current production cost. Estimated current production cost. If I'm to produce it with my current production cost, this is going to cost me 60. But I have got a target cost which is 54. I now have to produce the same cake at 54 because my customer is saying I have $90. So I need to reduce my costs from 60 to 54. And this is called a cost gap, 60 minus 54. So this is a cost gap. Now I need to find ways of reducing cost gap. Now, what are the ways of reducing cost gap? There are various ways I can reduce the cost gap, quite a lot. I need to reduce my costs from 60 to 54 without compromising on quality. And this is what I mean by reducing the cost gap. So quite a lot. So that's basically what target costing is about. And for your information, chapter is already done. You know, the chapter is on target costing. We are already done with it. You know, it's this easy. You know, no wonder why I like PM. It's a very easy. When I list these topics, they would appear like they are quite a lot, but they are nothing much. It's already done. So let me now take you step by step in detail. Now, what is target costing? It's an approach. It's an approach to costing. It's an approach to costing which aims to reduce costs at early stage. Of production. Are you not seeing something on target costing? Notice, I said, Dorcas, how much do you have? Remember, shaded in yellow is target costing. I said, how much do you have? You said, say I have 90. So I must to work with what we have. So I have to reduce my cost from current 60 to 54. But remember, I do this before I produce. I do this before I produce. Meaning target cost reduces cost prior to production. I must close the cost gap before I produce. So we call that, it is a feed forward mechanism. It is a feed forward because you do that before, meaning you do this before you produce. So it's a feed forward approach and does not involve techniques such as, and it doesn't involve techniques such as variance analysis. No, target costing doesn't have things like variance analysis. Why is that so, Katie, if you may ask? Because you control costs before you produce. I control costs before I produce your cake. I know you have 90, so I'm now working with 90. I have to manufacture the cake at 54, not at 60. So in other words, it's a feed forward. I do it before. I don't then calculate variance and see how much I have wasted, because with target costing, I do it before. Are we together? So yeah, what now are the steps involved in target costing? Steps involved in target costing. Target costing. These are the steps involved in target costing. You know, steps involved in target costing. Yeah, we do have quite a lot of steps, but you can see here that step number 1 is carry out market research. That's what you do first. Carry out market research. Determine the competitive selling price. Competitive selling. You may say what is a competitive selling price? It's a price that customers can pay. In this case, you ask customers, how much are you willing to pay? That's what I mean. That's so that we work with what you have. Carry out market research to determine competitive selling price. That's the first approach. The first step. The second step, make sure you know these steps in order. Deduct the desired profit margin at the target cost. You notice what we have done here. After saying how much do you have 90. I deducted the desired profit margin from 90 to get the target cost. So please guys, may you mute whenever I've got background noises. Sorry Phyllis, I'm muting you. So what you then have to do here is we say target cost equals target cost. Oh, sorry. I'm busy typing and nothing is coming out in the here. Target cost equals you say competitive selling price. Selling price less competitive selling price less desired margin. Competitive selling price, and then you take out the desired profit margin. That's how you calculate the target cost. Competitive selling price, meaning after you come up with selling price in step 1, deduct the desired profit margin from it. You now have the target cost. And what then do you do after that? You then say, which is step number 3, estimate the current production cost. Determine the estimated current production cost. Determine the estimated estimated current production cost. You need to understand that how much do you really want to produce this particular, if you want to carry out with your normal operation, how much does it cost? That's the estimated current production cost. Now step number 4 is like this. If the estimated current production cost exceeds the target cost, a cost gap is to exist. A cost gap is said to exist. Notice, because it's like if you are currently producing the product at a higher cost than the cost gap, than the target cost, it means you have to reduce cost. That's what is called cost gap. Cost gap does not mean the costs are not the same. Cost gap means need to reduce cost. Cost gap means that's what cost gap means. So if the estimated current production cost exceeds the cost gap, the target cost, it means a cost gap exists and there is need to reduce the cost gap. So I've shown you how you calculate a cost gap. It's like your current production cost is so much and your target cost is so much. And how do you calculate target cost? Is simply selling price, competitive selling price, less desired profit margin. If the target cost is less than what you are currently incurring, it means you have to reduce cost. So how do you reduce cost? You then need to find ways to reduce cost gap. That now becomes number 5. Management must then find ways to reduce the cost gap without compromising on quality. Without compromising on quality. You have to know that you now have to reduce the cost gap without compromising on quality. This is so important. Your cake, you are currently producing the cake at 60. You now have to produce the cake at 54, but without compromising on quality. Can you type in the chat? How do you suggest we should reduce cost gap without compromising on quality? Can you type that in the chat? Can you type that in the chat? Don't worry. Whatever you are going to type is correct because you are still learning. You are still in class. I am currently producing cakes at 60, and after calculating the cost gap at the target cost, I need to produce them at 54. Now, how can I take my cost from 60 to 54, but without compromising the quality of the cake? I'm seeing one person typing. Philip, where are the others? Dorcas, Rumbi? I know you guys, you are stars. I know you are stars. Continue typing. Continue typing, not mentioning Kathy, Daradak. Yes. How would you reduce your cost from the current 60 to 54 without compromising on quality? Without compromising on quality. Without compromising on quality. It's a practical example. No wonder why Kathy is saying she's following, which is quite cool. So thanks for the answers. Reduce labor hours, change baking mix. Yes, you reduce labor hours. Phyllis, you're quite cool on that one. The answer I need, Phyllis says something which is very intriguing. Phyllis, you could have said it, exploit any learning effect, because it has got connotations with what we just done. If there is still learning effect, exploit any learning effect and reduce labor hours. You know what, Phil? That's I'm now spicing it up. Change baking mix. Change baking mix is an answer provided you don't compromise on quality. You know, in as much as you are if you change baking mix, usazotibikire chimpoto high. You know, there's that kind of cake which you don't distinguish with chimodo, you know, that kind of thing. So it's correct. And then find cheaper supply. So you guys are stars. So all these are the answers I really wanted. You know, that's the beauty of teaching you. You make my job very easy. Be you blessed, guys. So what are the ways of reducing the cost gap? For example, this is how you can reduce the cost gap without compromising on quality. So, for example, number one, obtain cheaper suppliers of raw materials, if any. Obtain cheaper suppliers of raw materials, if any. But make sure these raw materials are not necessarily compromised. We are not saying poor quality raw materials. No, we are saying cheaper suppliers of raw materials, if any. Then, number two, exploit any learning curve effect. Exploit any learning curve. Any learning curve effect if there is still room to reduce labor hours. To reduce labor hours. So there you go. Another is three. There are quite a lot. You can do what is called functional and value analysis. Functional analysis. Functional analysis or value analysis. Functional or value analysis to eliminate costly processes which are not contributing to customer value, You know, there are quite a lot of costly processes which are not contributing to customer value. You know those. Suppose in this lecture, when you join, I have to mark your register. Can you imagine? Suppose you join via Skype and I have to mark your register as if I'm not seeing you. What does that process really create value? Suppose we are busy charging you that process. I can still, the register is automatically marked because it's online. Everyone in class is here. So can you imagine what is the benefit of marking a register? So if you are having such a process and you are busy charging it, and it is causing us our cake to cost $60. And now Dorcas is saying I've got 90 and our target cost is 54. We need to see which processes we are undertaking which are not contributing meaningful value to customers. And those processes need to be eliminated. And we call that functional analysis. The functions we are undertaking, are they valid or justified in terms of perception by customer? Is the customer seeing any sense with this particular process? So we eliminate it. So you get that? In so doing, we save costs. Another is you can undertake what is called, you know, this can be called process redesign. You can call it process redesign. Process redesign, or you can benchmark. You can call it benchmarking, or you can call it business processes re-engineering. Business processes re-engineering. Business processes re-engineering. All these all these are ways of trying to reduce the cost to reduce the cost gap. Another way of reducing the cost gap is what Daka has said, like change the mix of cakes. But remember, that requires a question which is about cake production. So because these are general points, we can put it this way, you know. Also, so what now are the benefits of target costing? Benefits of target costing. These are the benefits of target costing. You know, you can see it's a very noble approach to costing. It's not something that you can trash. You can't throw this into the dustbin. You notice it requires you to undertake market research first. So, in other words, charging a competitive selling price minimizes the risk of product failure. It minimizes the risk of product failure. And what do we mean by product failure? When you are charging a price which customers are able to pay, you minimize the risk of having products which do not sell, or you minimize the risk of being stuck with your products where customers are not paying, because target costing requires you to undertake market research at the beginning. Number two, another benefit is costs are reduced before production. Costs are reduced prior to production. Costs are reduced prior to production. When we called this feed forward, and I told you that it doesn't even have the issue of variance analysis. We don't do variance analysis in target costing because we reduce costs before we produce. Another benefit of target costing is by continually finding ways to reduce the cost gap, by continually finding ways to reduce the cost gap, comma, the firm is ushered into a continuous improvement mode. Continuous improvement mode. You know, this one is a very good point, because we are saying if you are being forced, if you are compelled to reduce cost gap. Now Docker said I have $90, and we said target cost is now 54. Katie comes and says, say I've got 85, so target cost is even lower than 54. So are you not seeing that with target costing you are always being compelled to reduce the cost gap? So in so doing, you are being ushered into continuous improvement mode. Now, if you are being compelled to continuously improve, this makes the firm responsive to changes in operating environment. Actually, this makes the firm beyond, which is say kuseri. The firm becomes a beyond entity, meaning its business model becomes responsive to varying customer unique paying abilities. So you have to understand all that. So that's the benefit of having target costing. You can see I like this costing approach. So actually what we are saying is, in brackets, the point that I have just said here, it helps the firm to be responsive to environmental changes and as well as customers unique abilities. I now know I have explained it pretty cool. Now, in the last 20 minutes, let us now do questions on target costing. Allow us to do questions on target costing. What I'm going to do is to send the revision kit that I've sent. The topic is already up. A PM is very easy. This ACCA, it becomes easy as you progress. When you progress, things become easy. When you progress, they become very, very easy. So I have sent the PM revision Kaplan kit in our Skype class group. You can access it there. I'm equally opening it here. I'm opening it here. Is it PM the one that I've sent? Yes. So there you go. So allow us to do questions here. So you would notice if you played last week's video on throughput accounting, I'm sure you managed to play last week's video on throughput accounting, and you'd notice the illustrations were equally in this particular kit, target costing. So there you go, question number 14. Now, I'm not going to do the answering. You do the answering, and then I will be saying the answer is correct or not. The following are all steps in the implementation of target costing process for a product. Which of the following represents the correct sequence if target costing were to be used? Question number 14. Talk to yourself. Read the question there, read the steps, and tell me what the answer is. Read the steps there and tell me what the answer is. Right? The following are all steps involved in the implementation of target costing process for a product. What is the sequence of the steps? Waiting. Guys, I'm waiting for the answer there. Are we all in class? Let me see. What's the answer there? The answer is apparent. The answer is clearly apparent. It doesn't require a lot of thinking. I'm waiting for you to tell me the answer. All right. Which of the following is the correct sequence if target costing is to be used? Dorcas is saying C. Let me go over it and see. C is saying set the selling price. Yes, 4 is the first step. Second step is set the required profit. Yes, so the answer is C. Good. Correct. So that's cool. Continuing. In a target costing, which of the following would be a legitimate strategy to reduce the cost gap for a product that existed in a competitive industry with demanding shareholders? How can you reduce a cost gap? How can you reduce a cost gap if the industry is competitive and shareholders are demanding? You know, if the question is saying shareholders are demanding, it means you can't increase. If the question says the industry is competitive, it means you can't increase the price. Otherwise, you will not have any customer. So talk to me. I'm waiting for the answer. You need to tell yourself the answer. Talk to yourself. How would you reduce a cost gap in a competitive industry with demanding shareholders? All right. So let me check what you guys have typed. D. Allow me to check. Mechanizing production in order to reduce average production cost. Correct. Because when you are working smarter, like introducing technology, actually introducing technology is one way to reduce the cost gap. Let me actually write it as the answer here. Automating production processing. Automation of production processes. Production processes. If you can automate, you can equally reduce the cost gap by automation. It's a very important way to reduce the cost gap. Automation of production processes. So there you go. Continuing. Which of the following strategies would be immediately acceptable methods to reduce the identified cost gap? Notice, I said you'll be doing the answering. I'll be just confirming. All right. So let me check what the answer you guys have. C. Saying the answer is C. Let me check. Reduce, source similar quality materials from another supplier at a reduced cost. Correct. Right. Continuing. So you can see this is how all these are past exam questions, mind you. All these are past exam questions. Now, question number 17 says, the predicted selling price for a product has been set at 56. The desired markup is 25%. And the material cost for the product is estimated to be $16 before allowing for additional materials to allow for a shrinkage of 20%. That is, every 10 kgs of materials used, only 8 kgs comes out. If labor is the only other cost, 2 hours are needed. What is the most the business can pay per hour if the cost gap is to be avoided? Now, if the question says cost gap is to be avoided, you come to your notes, to your sales notes, and say, how do you reduce a cost gap? For you to say there is no cost gap, it means target cost is equal to estimated production cost. For there to be no cost gap, target cost and estimated production cost should be the same. So when you're answering this particular question in our illustration badge, like on question number 17, you simply say, for us not to have a cost gap, comma, target cost must be the same as estimated production cost. Estimated production cost. Cost must be the same as the estimated production cost. So that's it. So we are just saying selling price. What is the selling price that we have set for this particular product? So selling price is 56 per unit. So selling price is 56. So I come here and I put 56. Now, this is the selling price and I'm given a markup, meaning I have to change a markup into a margin because this is a selling price. So I say less desired profit margin. Less desired profit margin, because markup is 25%, so the margin becomes 25 over 125 multiplied by 56. Make sure these things you are already familiar with. This equals 25 over 125 multiplied by this. That's the markup. I mean, that now becomes the margin because I'm given a selling price. So what do? If I then say selling price minus desired profit margin, what I come up with is called target cost. Target cost. So target cost is that I'm getting target cost of 44,8. Now, because we are told that we want to avoid a cost gap, meaning production cost must be the same. So I then say estimated current production cost. Are you getting it? Estimated current production cost. Then I open brackets and say, which must be equal to target, cost. So estimated current production cost, I say direct material. Notice here I'm given that direct material is $16, but before allowing a shrinkage of 20%, meaning if I put direct materials, they are shrinking. So $16 is actually 80% after they have shrinked by 20%. So the direct materials that I put into the process, it should be 100 over 80, because $16 it's after they have shrinked, meaning I buy 100% and allowing for shrinkage of 20%. So the $16 is after shrinking. So direct materials, I say equals 100 over 80 multiplied by 16. Then direct labor. I'm told that direct labor, they just need 2 hours. They are saying 2 hours of labor are needed. 2 hours. So I open brackets and say 2 hours. The direct labor becomes the balancing figure. Why is direct labor the balancing figure? Because these costs must be the same. So direct labor becomes equals 44,8 minus 20. So because I don't need a cost gap, so this becomes my estimated current production cost. Now the question was, what is the labor rate that you have to pay? What is the rate per hour? The rate per hour, that was the question. So the rate per hour, equals 24,8 24,8 divided by 2 hours. 2 hours, which is equals to, so you're simply saying equals this over 2. So directly the labor rate per hour, that's what the examiner is asked, was asking $12.40. So you would come to this fill-in box and just type $12.40. Then question number 18, which of the following techniques is not relevant to target costing? Can you type the answer in the chat feature? Which of the following techniques is not relevant to target costing? Right? Techniques which are not relevant to target costing. Remember, I was always saying variance analysis, correct? Remember, I said target costing is a feed-forward mechanism, so it doesn't even make use of variance analysis, correct? Then perhaps if you can do this as the last question, hang in there, guys, until we get to the end. It's so important. Here saying the selling price for a product Sigma is said to be $250 for each unit, and sales for the coming year are expected to be 500 units. If the company requires a return of 15% in the coming year on its investment of $250,000 in product Sigma, the target cost for each product is, so target cost, remember, that's our target cost is, you still do it the same way. You say total sales from what we have, as because this is given like they want return on the total investment. So total sales is 250,000 by 500, 250 units, sorry, times, I mean $250. It's $250 multiplied by 500 units. $50 multiplied by 500 equals, you say 250 times 500. So 250 times 500 is 125,000, and then you say less desired profit. Now, notice desired profit is not given per unit as before. They are simply saying profit is 15% on investment of 250,000. So you simply say profit equals, you say 15% multiplied by 250, 1, 2, 3, close bracket, and say equals 0.15 times 250, 1, 2, 3. So profit is 37. Desired profit becomes 37. So what you then have is you come up with total target cost. So this is called total target cost. Total target cost. So total target cost is 18,500. Then you say target cost per unit. Target cost per unit. If you now need target cost per unit, you are now saying 87,500 divided by units, which is 500. So you are now saying equals this over 500. That becomes target cost per unit. And the answer that I'm getting here is 175. So it was a pick. You would pick 175 from the drop down banner here. So it's 175. So you would continue doing that, and then you get to the end. But before I sum it up, allow me to talk to you about whether target costing is ideal in a service industry or not. No, now, target costing can be used in all industries. Always know that target costing, we can use it in all industries. But target costing is difficult to use in a service industry. Though it can be used, but it's difficult to use in a service industry. The reason why target costing is difficult to use in a service industry is because of the characteristics of services. Characteristics of services. That's what makes target costing difficult to use in a service industry. You know, services are different from goods. Services have these characteristics. Number one, services are intangible. Services are intangible, meaning you can't necessarily have a single, you know, services you can't touch, so to speak. Characteristics of services makes target costing difficult to use in service industries. So number one, services are intangible. Number two, services are, you know, heterogeneous. Heterogeneity. What do we mean by heterogeneity? We are saying when it comes to services, they vary from one customer to another. If a customer is to come and I'm to teach the same thing I was teaching now, you would notice I would not teach in exactly the same fashion. That's the danger of services. No wonder why, because of that, we can't have a target cost for a service because they are heterogeneous. If I'm a dentist and I'm into removing of teeth, you do notice that one customer would come with a different set of teeth problem than the other. So I can't have a single target cost for teeth removal. Another characteristic of service is there is no transfer of ownership. There is no transfer of ownership. You know, if I buy water from a supermarket, I will be given the bottle of water. But when I'm teaching you, you can't take it away from me. You can only learn from me, but you leave it with whatever I'm teaching you, I still retain it. So services, there's no transfer of ownership. Another characteristic of service is perishability. What do we mean when we are saying perishability? Services are innately perishable, meaning, for example, if an airplane departs from Harare International Airport, which is now Robert Mugabe International Airport, if an airplane departs from there to South Africa with an empty seat, it automatically perishes. For that journey, it perishes. It's different from mealie meal, which is in a shop. If it's not bought today, it will be bought tomorrow. And you don't lose. But for the airplane, they have lost that revenue for that. You get that? Services are innately perishable than goods. Because of that, it's difficult to implement target costing. Not that target costing cannot be implemented. Remember, I'm not saying cannot, I'm saying it's difficult. Then last but not least, the characteristic of service, apart from this, is, which is number 5, is, so I've said, a tangible heterogeneity, and there is what is called simultaneity. By simultaneity, we are saying services are produced and consumed at the same time. Services are produced and consumed at the same time. That is called simultaneity. Like if I'm a dentist removing a tooth, I produce a service and I consume a service at the same time. It's different from what we do in other instances, like when you are selling a product where we have a target cost. But if I'm teaching and you are consuming a service at the same time. In what way then can I say this is estimated current production cost? It becomes difficult because the variables for the lecture are coming out as we are conducting the lecture. So when it comes to services, they are consumed and produced at the same time. So that one is so important. So as you know, you guys, I have already sent, this lecture will be streamed. I'm sure Priska said couldn't attend the lecture. So in that case, she can still play the lecture on our YouTube video. Please subscribe if you have internet challenges so that you can still receive a copy. But as always, I want you to join the actual lecture. As you can see, you participate. And this issue of getting things for the first time has got educative effect. Otherwise, if you then rely on playing, though it is important, but it's not that conducive because it amounts to like reading a textbook or something. So I want you to participate. It's important because that's where education, this educative impact is on. So thank you so much, guys, thank you so much.